So after trying to cut things off with a surgeon before things really even got started, I realized that not all men take rejection easily. I had heard Dr. Tony didn't take well to being turned down, but I had no idea he would be this bad. He had forced a kiss on me the day before, and I had been awake all night trying to figure out what to do about it. I decided that I should try and take the path of least resistance. I stayed away from Dr. Tony as much as I could. Luckily, I was busy helping another doctor with a terminal patient, so that wasn't an issue for the next couple of days. When I was paged to the nurse's station, I was wary to see that it was Dr. Tony who had paged me. "What do you want?" I asked. He was not impressed with my tone and said, "As this is a teaching hospital, my plan is to teach you. Grab that pile of charts and follow me." I hurried down the hall behind him. He was very tall with long legs and big strides. I was short with tiny legs and was struggling to keep up with him. I started to try and talk about the kiss, but he just brushed it aside. No big surprise. He seemed to be giving me the worst cases. He was supposed to be teaching me, but really, he was holding me back. I asked him to stop treating me like this, but he said he had no idea what I was talking about. I went through the day from patient to patient handling all the grunt jobs. I wondered how long I could keep this up when Dr. Tony told me that I was needed to pull a double shift. I had already been on for 12 hours straight and asked if there wasn't someone who wasn't coming off a 12-hour that could take it. He said, "There is, but then I'll remember you're not a team player." Not only had he started giving me all the worst cases, the saddest ones, the messiest ones, he had also started scheduling me for the worst shifts, the longest ones. I was more exhausted than I had ever been in my life and wasn't sure how long I could keep it up for. I started looking into talking to the medical board, but felt so uneasy about starting out my medical career this way. I talked to another doctor about it, but it was a real boys' club, and it didn't seem to change anything. The next time I found myself in a room alone with Dr. Tony, he pulled the same move as before. He acted like he was totally indifferent to me until he pushed into me and pinned me to the wall. He rubbed his hands up and down my body and said, "Now, if you want anything to change, maybe you should consider how to get me on your good side again." With that, he kissed me on the neck and left the room. I collapsed on the floor in tears. What had I done? I had been warned about him and should have just gotten up and left when he approached my table for that first time that night we met. I had never before wanted so badly to be able to turn back time. I went home that night and decided that I was going to go into my room and not come out until I had a plan in place. I put my headphones on and went over every step that had led me to where I was. I got up the next morning and made myself a super healthy, high-protein breakfast to help me through my double shift. I walked through the front doors of the hospital with a plan in place. I had watched enough movies to know that in most sexual harassment cases, it ended up being a case of he said, she said. I had placed my phone in the breast pocket of my scrubs and set out to find Dr. Tony. I did my best to make myself look extra appealing. When I saw him at the water fountain, I asked him if he had a minute. He looked surprised but followed me into an empty room. I put on my best adorable coy voice and asked him if he remembered our first drink together and playing pool. He got a twinkle in his eye and said yes. I thought this might actually work. He was walking right into my trap. I said, "Being friends was great, and I'm sorry that you wanted more. I had just always told myself that it would be a bad idea to get involved with someone I worked with, let alone one of my bosses." He said that it was okay and that he understood. I said that I had been disappointed by how he had reacted, how he had given me the bad cases and bad shifts. Then I talked about what he had done to harass me. I was hoping he would admit it, and he did just that. He ran his hand through his hair and went on about how bad he was at taking rejection. He talked about how he shouldn't have taken advantage of his position and wouldn't do it again. I said, no, you won't. Then I produced my phone from my pocket and pressed play. It started with my voice, and before long, he knew exactly what I had done and how he had been trapped. His face instantly went red. He started to threaten me, and I said, "Are you sure more threats are really what you should be doing?" "What do you want?" he said. I told him I wanted him to stop what he was doing. I told him I wanted him to leave me alone and that I no longer wanted to work with him. I told him I wanted my normal shifts back. And I told him that if he did this again to me or any other nurse in the hospital, that tape would find itself on the desk of the chief of surgery, not to mention the hospital board. He turned and sheepishly walked out of the room. From that day on, I didn't have any troubles with Dr. Tony or any other doctor. In fact, word had gotten around amongst the nurses what I had done, and overnight I had become like some sort of folk hero. Some of the senior nurses had even asked me out for drinks that night. To get in with that crowd was not easy. They had earned their stripes and really stuck together. That night, they laughed and asked for the story of how Dr. Tony reacted over and over and over again. They said he was treating them all differently since, and that I had made things better for everyone, except for Dr. Tony, of course. Life had settled nicely for me. I was back on track with going through my program, and I had loads of friends at the hospital. As I went further along in my program, I realized I wanted to pursue my medical license and become a doctor. I had faced Dr. Tony, and although he had made me do things I hadn't wanted to do for a while, I had figured out a way to keep my job and solve my problem. Moving forward, I had learned that my friend from nursing school was going through something similar at her hospital. I gave her advice to not take any kind of harassment. I told her that the longer you left a situation like that, the harder it was to get out of. I hadn't let the situation with Dr. Tony go on that long, but it was still ridiculously hard to get out of. I was there for her and told her I would support any choice she made. She decided to report the doctor to the board, and there was a huge investigation, during which several other nurses came forward to support her story. The doctor was fired, and shortly after, Dr. Tony asked to talk to me. We hadn't talked since the incident, so I wasn't thrilled about being alone in a room with him again, but went anyway. Curiosity had gotten the better of me. As it turns out, the doctor from the other hospital who had gotten fired because of my friend's harassment suit had been a friend of Dr. Tony's. They had gone to med school together, and Dr. Tony talked about how they were never any good for each other, how they played off each other's gigantic egos. In the end, Dr. Tony actually thanked me. He said, "I know that could have just as easily been me. I know what I did wasn't the same as what he did, but it could have gotten to that point. I appreciate that you took matters into your own hands. At first, I was angry and bitter, but now, I see just how much worse things could have gone for me. Instead, I was given another chance, a chance to change and become a better doctor and person." I was stunned. Was this actually an apology? Yes, it was. I felt like things had come full circle. To watch more animated story videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And tell us in the comments section what you thought about this story.